Hello and welcome, you guys. Welcome to Three Barns of Charm. My name is Leanne and I am so happy to have you guys today. You guys, today's tutorial is so stinking cute. I'm so excited to start this. Look, it's a little fabric sunflower bobblehead shelf sitter. Isn't that cute? Oh my gosh, super easy, super fun. Hey, and if you're not a yellow person, make it blue, make it pink. It's totally up to you. You can make it whatever color you wish, but you guys, look how cute. Oh my gosh, I promise you, you guys can do this. So if you'd like to learn how to make your very own fabric sunflower, then stay tuned because I'm gonna teach you. All right guys, well let's get started. Let's quickly go over the supplies. Of course, you're gonna need some fabric. You're gonna need about 1/4 yard for your fabric petals. And then you'll just need a little bit, just a little scrap piece for your leaf that you're going to use, and then just a little bit of scrap for the center. So I would say just a hair over 1/4 yard of fabric. You guys, you can totally use any kind of fabric you want. I would stick with the lighter weight fabrics, something like a cotton that has a little bit of a structure to it. If you go real heavy with a denim, you might have a little bit of trouble putting this all together, but again, you absolutely can make this any style of flower you want. But again, I would stick with maybe like the cotton style fabrics. So again, 1/4 yard, 1/4 yard total, but somewhere in there, you guys will see. It just depends on how full you want your sunflower to be. Of course, you're going to need a mason jar lid. I poked a hole in mine and then marked it with a little string, but we'll go over that. But just a regular mason jar lid. You're going to need around a 3.5 inch clay pot, but any planter, any pot will work. You could use any size you guys want. You can paint yours, you can use plastic. I just like the style of this, and it's got a little bit of weight to it to help kind of hold the sunflower up. But you guys can do any style pot you want. You're going to need a little bit of polyfill or a wadded up tissue or even a cotton ball. You could use something like that to add to the center. You're going to need a little bit of a foam cone to add to your pot, but again, you don't have to use a foam cone. If you have the foam that you use for the artificial flowers, you can use that. You can use a plastic ball, anything that would kind of sit down in your pot to hold your your flower in place. That's all you need this for. I used a little bit of Spanish moss on top to kind of cover everything and make it real cute. I got this at the Dollar Tree, really inexpensive. I think this was Dollar Tree. If not, it was probably Hobby Lobby. But you guys, this stuff exists anywhere and everywhere. You're gonna need a little bit of paint. If you want to paint your wire, I just distressed mine a little bit with some copper paint and then some ground cinnamon. And I distressed my fabric petals just a hair in the center with some orange paint to add a little bit of dimension. You guys don't have to do that. If you would like to do that, it's a really kind of cool technique. You don't have to use orange even. You can use any color you want. If you want to go real dark in the center, like maybe a brown even, that would be really cute. So just keep in mind, you might want to add a little bit of some paint. A ruler, of course, some scissors, some wire cutters. This is the tool that I used to punch a hole in my lid, but a simple nail and hammer will do the trick. You just are punching just a small hole, and I just marked it with a piece of twine. A glue gun, a hammer, of course, some wire snips to cut your wire, and you're going to need a little bit of wire. I got my wire, it came in a spool that looks like this. It's a galvanized steel wire. It's a 14 gauge wire. It looks kind of intimidating, but it's not. It's pretty malleable. You can move it around, but it's pretty firm. I didn't give much for it, maybe just $3 or $4 for the whole spool. You're going to need about 40 inches all told, but again, you guys get to decide how tall your stem is going to be. Even if you don't even want to use the wire, you could use like a wood stick, like a dowel rod, and skip the wire technique altogether. So you guys completely able to make this any which way you want. Have fun with it. You don't have to use yellow fabric. If you wanted to make maybe like an aster or even a daisy, you guys, super cute, super fun, and I think after I'm done filming here, I'm gonna make some more. So I'm kind of addicted to this. Help. So you guys, it's so much fun. Just enjoy the process and don't think too hard about it. It's gonna be awesome. It's just a rustic, primitive little daisy shelf sitter, or I should say sunflower. Not, well, if you want to do daisy, go for it. So it's just gonna be super fun, and I cannot wait to get started. So let's get started. All right, guys. Well, the very first step, if you want to do the wire step, so if you're wanting to put your flower onto kind of like a bobblehead effect, you're going to need to either A, buy a bed spring, maybe at an antique store or even like a craft store. You could probably even find them on Amazon, or you can just make your own. And this is how I did mine. We're gonna take our Dollar Tree black funnel. I got this at the hardware section in the Dollar Tree. Really inexpensive. I believe, I think it was in the automotive or hardware section of the Dollar Tree. It's not the craft section, it's the hardware section. And about, see where the funnel starts to get a little bit wider, I would say about 2 inches from that line up, I poked a hole with a nail and a hammer, and I just poked a hole right there, wide enough that I can add my wire to it. So I'm just going to slip my funnel right up through the middle of my wire, and I'm going to take one end of my wire, put the wire all the way in until it stops, until it hits the other side of that wall. So you have about 1 inch of wire inside your funnel. You want a little bit of wire in there so you have a little bit of a lip to hang your flower on, because this is what's holding your flower, your fabric flower to the spring. So you're gonna just stick your wire in until it hits the other side of your funnel, and then I'm going to just take my thumb and I'm going to push it down, push the wire down against the plastic funnel. And then I'm going to take my left hand and I'm just going to start spinning the wire around and around and around and around the funnel. So I'm going to take this thumb and I'm going to push it down, push my wire down just like this. And now I'm just going to start spinning my left hand, and I'm just rotating, all the while holding that wire down against our funnel. And I'm just spinning. See how it's real tight against the funnel, and you're just spinning. Spin, spin, spin. Don't overthink it. You're just making a spring. That's all you're doing. And I'm just cupping my hand, and as the wire's spinning around, it's pushed up against that funnel. All the way down to the very end. Just like that. And then be careful when it lets go, it doesn't unravel and whack you. So now we're going to take our spring, our pliers here, and pull that wire out and release it from our funnel. And now you have a little bed spring to use as your stem. So now what we're going to do is we're going to attach the very end to this piece here, and all you're going to do is make a loop and loop it around here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our little pliers, and I'm just going to make a circle. See how I just made a circle, guys? Very, very simple. Easy peasy. And I'm just going to attach it to this piece here, so it catches this piece. And then I'm just going to close that circle. Nothing fancy, guys, I promise. You're just connecting the two ends. So there's a little bit of stability See how I just wrapped the end around this piece, so now it's connected? That's all you're doing. It doesn't have to be a loop like that. If you just wanted to just flat wrap it so it's all the way down, if you wanted to take a smaller piece of wire or even twine, you could do that as well. You could just wrap, say, let me grab a piece of twine. You could even, if you didn't want to make a loop, you could even just take a piece of twine and tie it and just wrap and wrap and wrap, and then take your glue gun and then just run a glue bead along there. You're just attaching, all you're doing is just making a circle at the very bottom. That's all you're doing, so that the end piece isn't just flopping in the wind, that it's actually connected to here. It's not. So now it's one circle. That's all you're doing. And then you can adjust your size. So when you go to add it to your flower pot, it'll sit down in there like that. See how that works, guys? That's all you're doing. So you don't have to don't overthink it. It's just going to sit down in there just like that. So now I find that that's a little bit too tight of a curlicue for my taste. So I'm going to uncurl it a little bit. So all I'm doing, instead of, if you curl it one way, if you twist it one way, it's going to make that curlicue tighter. If you curl it the opposite direction, it's going to start unwinding that curlicue and making it bigger and bigger and looser and looser. See how now that that's a little bit more of a loose and it's not so tight? And that's all I'm doing. Just take your time. That's all you're doing. So then you have something that looks like that. And I'm going to straighten out, I would say about I would say about 3 inches. I would say about 3 inches. So you're just going to have your curlicue, and then at the very end you're going to have about 3 inches of straight wire that's just going to go straight up. So when you set it down in your pot, you have, you guys see that? So when it's sitting in your pot, you have your pot, your curlicue, and then about 3 inches of straight wire. And that's where your flower head is going to sit. And that is how you make your bed spring. Super easy, guys. I told you you could do it. So cute. Could you imagine all the fun things you can make with these curlicues? At Christmas time, you can make little Christmas trees and put little bells on them. Oh my gosh, sky's the limit. Oh, I'm getting inspired, y'all. I'm getting inspired. So fun. Okay. All right, well, we're going to move on to the next step. Now, the next step, what we're going to do is I'm going to paint my wire. The shiny silver is okay, but it's not the look that I'm going for this project. So what I'm going to do is distress my wire just a hair. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of copper paint and a little bit of the blue turquoise paint. And we're going to make kind of a copper patina. And then while the paint is still wet, we're going to add a little bit of ground cinnamon. I think ground coffee could also work for this as well, but the ground cinnamon is a little bit more fine of a texture and kind of gives a more refined look. Refined distressing. I don't know, that I feel like those are opposites. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. So what I'm going to do is I just took a Dollar Tree kitchen sponge and I just cut it into quarters. And these are really inexpensive, great way to do craft paint like this. So I'm going to take my little paper plate and I'm going to add a little bit of copper paint. And then you could use a brown paint too, guys. You don't have to do the copper or the blue. If you wanted to just be like a dark brown paint, you can absolutely do that as well. And you don't need a whole lot of blue either. So not a whole lot of paint here. We'll just start out with this. And I'm going to take my little sponge and I'm just going to dip it down in my paint. And all you're going to do is just start painting your wire. Paint all the way around. And you don't have to be super careful with this. You're just getting the paint onto your wire. And if you miss a spot or two, that's okay too, I promise. I'm just getting the copper paint onto my wire. If you can find copper wire at your hardware store that is a 14 gauge, it might be a little bit more expensive than just like a galvanized steel, but that could be awesome too. It would skip a step, and then you could just distress the copper wire. And then don't forget your insides. But you're just going round and round and round. Just paint, 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 paint. And you're just getting all of that silver painted a coppery color. That's all we're doing. But again, you guys could use like a brown if you wanted to. You can use it. You could do a green color and make it a little bit more realistic if you wanted to paint yours a green color. If you found some floral wire that was heavy duty enough, you could use that as well. And you don't have to worry about so much the bottom piece or the very top piece, because those are going to be hidden. This is going to be under the fabric, and this will be down in the pot. So you're more just concerned about the center part of the bed spring more than anything else. And just spin it around, make sure you got it painted as much as you like. And then while the paint is still wet, you're going to add your blue paint on top of your copper paint. So that looks pretty good to me. There's still a little bit of silver showing, but that's okay. Just make sure I got all of it. And then you can go back and touch it up too once you get it all together. So now I'm going to add a little bit of the blue paint, and I'm just going to kind of randomly I'm just randomly putting the blue around in spots. I'm not covering up all of my copper. I'm just making little spots with my turquoise paint. I'm just making, you know how like copper gets wet, it'll oxidize a turquoise. That's all we're doing. See how we're making little spots of turquoise? Really pretty. But again, you guys get to make this however you want. So if you like the silver look, then feel free to keep it silver. And then while the paint is still wet, what we're going to do is add a little bit of cinnamon to our paint. And I'm just sprinkling it right over our wet paint. And we're just a little bit, little dab will do you, and it'll start making that real kind of crusty, rusty look that I like. But again, you guys can do this however you like. But isn't that cute, guys? Super distressed. Love it. Then you can always go back in if you wanted to add a little bit more here or there. Feel free to go back in and touch it up and really add that turquoise in there. So cute, guys. Look how cute that is. So rusty goodness. So cute. And then we are going to set that to the side to dry. You guys, super easy, super fun, you guys. So cute. Love it. All right, moving on to the next step, guys. Real quick, to prep our foam cone, all we are looking for is something to sit down inside our clay pot to hold that wire in place. We're just looking for something fairly firm to put down in there. So again, if you don't have a foam cone, that's okay. You're just going to need something to sit down in there to hold that wire firm. So again, I got mine at the Dollar Tree, but you can find these at, oh my goodness, probably Walmart, any old place. So all I'm going to do is take my little craft knife, and I'm going to cut about, I would say about 3 inches. Let's do 2.5 inches, and then if we need to, we can cut it down. And we're going to use the top piece. So just start cutting it down, but I would cut it longer first, and then you can always trim off the pieces. You can always make it shorter. So all we're going to do is just see how this is going to sit it sit down in there. It's a little bit too long yet, but this is, you guys get the idea of what you're looking for. So I'm going to trim a little bit more off. So I'm going to trim off probably another almost about an inch. Just take your time. And again, you guys can use anything that will hold firm. So that's pretty much what we're looking for. You want it to be at least, it can sit below the lip of your clay pot, but you want it to at least be flush. If it's raised up a little bit, you'll be able to see your foam. So you don't really particularly want that, or at least I don't. So I just made sure that it was at least flush to the top of the pot. So let me measure that for you guys. That's about 2 inches of the very widest part of that foam cone. Now we're just going to take a little bit of brown paint, and all we're going to do is paint the top of our, and maybe like the very top edge, with just some basic brown paint. You don't have to use brown if you have dark green. Any dark color will be fine. You're just making it unwhite, that's all. It's just, if you leave it white, you might be able to see it through our Spanish moss. And that's okay too. That's really not a problem. If you like that look, go for it. I'm just gonna paint the top of this dark so you can't see it. And I'm just gonna take my same crusty sponge and just paint the top dark. And that's all we're doing. Just really inexpensive brown. I think it says burnt umber, but any dark color will do. And I'm gonna do the edges around the sides just in case it shows. But now that it's a dark brown, it won't show as much through that Spanish moss. And then we'll set that to the side to dry. All right, guys, well, let's get started with the next step. It's a very simple step. All we're going to do is poke a hole right at the edge of our lid, right at the lip, and it's a very small hole. All you need is a hole large enough to put your wire through. So this is your bed spring, this is your stem. You just need a hole wide enough so it'll catch just like that. So you can take a nail and a hammer and just poke a hole through. You could use a drill bit and a drill very carefully, but drill a hole that's, you know, small enough, but it can just go right through the metal. This is the tool that I used. I believe I got it at the Hobby Lobby. I didn't pay a whole lot for it, and it just cinches down and just, it's a very simple tool, and you just cinch it down and it pokes holes through leather, metal, wood. It's a handy little tool, and I just used the 1/16 side. This is the 3 32, but I used the smaller one. And all you're doing is poking a hole right at the edge of the lip. And again, I know this was from an earlier project, so don't mind that my lid has a hole in it, but it's fine. Yours won't probably have this hole, so don't worry. Why does mine have a hole in it? You're actually just poking a hole here, I promise. And then what you're gonna do is you're just gonna take a little bit of twine, and you're just going to mark your hole. So when you start wrapping your lid in your fabric, you're gonna kind of lose track of where that hole is. So just to save yourself a little bit of headache, just take yourself a little bit of yarn or twine or something and just make a quick little tie. Nothing, you're not leaving it, it's nothing permanent, but just mark where the hole is. So when you start wrapping your lid in your fabric, then you know where the hole will be at the end. So, and that is that step. All right, guys, well, let's get started on one of the biggest steps, and that is your fabric. So let's talk fabric real quick. I know I had mentioned that you want to use a cotton style, very simple cotton style fabric. You don't want anything too particularly heavy or too real thin and flimsy, although that might be kind of pretty. But the heavier the fabric you go, say if you get into a heavy denim or even a heavy upholstery fabric, you might have some trouble when it's time to start looping your fabric around your lid. I would stick more towards the cotton style, and good news, this is more of like the inexpensive. You can get this at Walmart, Hobby Lobby, even Dollar Tree has cotton style fabrics. Again, you're gonna need for the actual petals themselves, you're gonna need about 1/4 of a yard. Not quite, but I would get yourself about 1/4 of a yard of fabric for your petals, and then you really just need just a small scrap of green or whatever color you want to make for your leaf. It's just really about 1.5 inches by 8 inches, so just a small scrap piece for your little leaf. And then you're just going to need just a little bit, maybe about a 5-inch piece of fabric for the center of your flower. I just chose to go with a brown cotton. Sunflowers come in all shapes, sizes, colors. You guys, sky's the limit. It's gonna be so much fun. I can't wait to see how you guys make your flowers. So you get to do it however you want. You can even add like a different color for your green. But again, you guys are gonna need about 1/4 of a yard for your petals, a scrap piece for your leaf, and about a 5-inch-ish piece, about the size of your hand, for the center. And I just went with yellow, green, and brown, but you guys can make it any color you want. Just keep in mind that your petals, the petal size that I chose was an 8-inch long piece and about 1.25 inches wide. But you can go wider or you can go more narrow. Just know that if you go a bit more wider than 1.25 inches, it might give you a little bit of trouble when it's time to wrap around your lid. That's why I chose to do about 1.25 inches. For my leaf, I went 1.5 inches, so I went a little bit wider. All right, so now I'm going to show you how I prepped my fabric. You guys can absolutely cut your fabric if you wish. If you like to have straight, crisp lines, then by all means, you do it that way. So get yourself a rotary cutter or scissors and you can cut your fabric and go to town. I, on the other hand, like the fluffy edge, the little rustic fabric ripped edge. So what I did is I just ripped my fabric. So I just put my fabric out, get my little handy dandy ruler and some scissors. You guys, FYI, these little pink handled scissors from the Dollar Tree are excellent. I know they're cheap, little $1.50. Well, I'm not sure what I actually gave for them. You know, it's always a surprise at the Dollar Tree anymore price wise, but I think I gave $1.50 maybe for these, and they cut fabric really well. So get yourself a pair of these little pink handled scissors. They're pretty good. And all I did was I just marked out about 1.25 inches and I put my thumb down at the edge of my fabric and I just made a snip, and then you just rip. And that is all you have to do. Easy, easy, easy. And then when you're finished, just take all these little strings off. You don't want all that because that'll just get tied up in your project. You just want to have just like a nice clean edge. So if you've got like these little wispies, just pull those off real quick. And there you have your strip of fabric, and then you can just cut it to length. So, and again, I cut mine 8 inches. So I just measured out 8 inches, put my thumb down and cut it across. And that's all you need to do, guys. Super easy. You can go ahead and leave your strip just like that. I rounded the edges of my petals just a hair. So let me move this to the side here and I'll show you. So all I did was, this is my strip of fabric, my 8-inch strip of fabric. And you guys don't overthink it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's even charming if they're not all exactly the same width and length. So just kind of roll with it. So this is slightly less than 8 inches, and that's okay. And then you I just rounded the edges. Here, let me rip another piece of fabric and I'll show you. I just put my thumb down. I don't mark it. I don't get a pencil or anything. I just get my little handy dandy ruler and I just kind of put my thumbnail down to where I want it to be. I just snip my fabric and then rip. Super simple, guys. And again, you guys are more than welcome to cut your fabric if you like to have it more of a crisp look on the ends. I would cut the salvage off of your ends, meaning if you have a very obvious end piece, the salvage, I would cut that off because that will show. So I would just cut your salvage off. And then you just measure out your 8 inches. I just put my thumb down, cut my 8-inch strip, just like that. And you can do it one at a time or fold it over, match ends. See, I just folded it in half. And I'm just gonna take the corners off. That's all I'm doing. Easy peasy. See how now there's got kind of a rounded effect to it? And there is your petal. I told you guys it's super easy. And if you wanted to add a little bit more charm, you can even just cut into the end of it. So I just cut just a little, just cut right into it. And then you can just rough it up a little bit, and then you can rough up that edge a little bit more so it looks a little bit more rustic. And again, you can just cut right into the end, and I'm just taking little snips. I'm not going very far, just maybe not even 1/4 of an inch. Run my hand along it, and then you got kind of, see how now it's really soft on the edges, like a petal. Super cute, you guys. And that is your fabric petal right there. So you're gonna need roughly 20 strips for your flower head. Okay, so you're gonna need about 20 strips, 28-inch by 1.25 inch strips for your flower. You're only gonna need 1 for your leaf. So this is about 1.5 inch by 8 inches, and it's the exact same technique as the petal, just slightly wider. And then for the petal, it's the same thing, only a little bit wider. I'm gonna go about 1.5 inches. So I'm gonna cut me an 1.5 inch piece, or I should say rip. So I got about 1.5 inches. 1.5 inch by 8. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shape my leaf a little bit different than my petal. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my 1.5 inch by 8 inch piece of green fabric for my leaf, and I'm gonna fold it over. So there's a fold in the middle, and then I'm gonna fold that in half again. Just like that. So I'll show you again. So you have your 1.5 inch by 8 inch. So you're just gonna fold it in half and fold it in half again. And the non-folded side, so the side that's all fluffy on this side, we're gonna cut a very long, narrow edge. So we're gonna start at the tip. See, this is our folded edge. We're gonna start at the tip of that folded edge, and I'm just gonna kind of round off the edge. And go straight down. And then you have a leaf shape, just like that. Easy peasy, guys. I told you you could do it. Easy, super fun. But again, you guys can make your leaves and your petals any shape, any size, any color you want. All right, and we'll move on to the next step. And then last but not least, we're gonna cut the center for our flower. So we're gonna take the center of our lid, and we're just gonna cut a circle that's about 1 inch larger than our lid. So if you want, you can mark it out with a little bit of chalk. You can eyeball it. I'm gonna grab my chalk. And you're just going to just draw a circle that's slightly larger than your lid. You don't have to make it perfect. Don't make it perfect. Don't worry about it. You're just making a little bit larger, and you can always cut it down. But you're just going to cut yourself a circle that's larger than your lid. Super easy. It does not have to be perfect. And it could be rough edges and all the things. It's just going to go behind. And this then will be the center of your flower, just like that. See that, guys? Easy peasy. All right, we're gonna move on to the next step. All right, guys, moving on to the next step. And again, this is an optional step. You don't have to do this. You can go straight to attaching your fabric petals to your lid if you wish. I decided to do a little bit of a distressing look on my petals, so I added a little bit of paint to the center of each of my fabric petals to kind of give like an added dimension to my fabric. So what I'm going to do is I just got myself a little bit of parchment paper. You can use any kind of wax paper or just protect the surface of your countertop. And you're going to take another handy dandy clean sponge, and you're going to take a little bit of orange paint or whatever color you wish to use, and you're just going to dab it onto your sponge. And you can do a little bit or a lot, or a little bit on some and a lot on others. It's completely up to you. And you're just going to dab that paint right onto the right sides of your fabric, right in the middle. And I would spread it, I would start in the middle and spread out to the edges, and I went to just about an inch to the edge of the petal. So I'll just start in the middle here. And I make it kind of, the paint's heavier in the middle of the petal. And then as I work my way out, it gets a little bit lighter and lighter and lighter. And I take the paint almost to the edge. I would say there's about an inch of fabric that doesn't get painted on each side. And you're going to repeat that process on all of your petals. And you guys can use any color you want. Again, you can use like a brown color if you wanted to. You can use, if you're doing like a blue petal, you could do like a dark purple in the middle. That'd be really pretty. Sky's the limit, guys. This is just an added bonus step. You could do like a dark brown to really add some really primitive looks. Super cute. This is just adding, because with sunflowers, if you think about it, sunflowers aren't just yellow. They're not just orange. They're not just, you know, one color. That there's multiple colors on a sunflower. So I'm just kind of adding just that little extra pizzazz. Super cute. And you don't want to do it the exact same way every single time either. So if you do like a little bit on one petal and then a lot on another, even better. Even better. But again, guys, you can leave your fabric unpainted if that's the look you like. And you're going to want to do this. You're going to want to do this particular paint technique on all 20 of your petals. Super fun. And then you're going to just let your petals dry. You don't have to use chalk paint. You can use acrylic paint, any kind of paint, any fast drying paint. You could probably even use like an oil pastel, or even maybe a chalk too, if you wanted to spray it at the end with a little bit of sealer. But this is just a real basic, inexpensive chalk paint. I believe the orange is called pumpkin, and that's the Waverly chalk paint. And you can get that at Walmart. Pretty inexpensive. And see, I kind of just changed it up a little bit they're not all the exact same painted. And I'm just dabbing down and rocking it back up. If you just go up and down, you might have trouble with your fabric coming up. So I'm just holding my fabric down and just rocking the paint. I'm kind of pushing the sponge into my fabric. And then after you get all of your petals painted the way you like, then set those aside to dry and we will move on to the next step. All right, while we are waiting for our fabric petals to dry, which won't take very long, chalk paint doesn't take very long to dry, especially on fabric, what we're gonna do is take a little bit of our petal fabric and just rip yourself or cut a piece that is about a 1/2 inch by 36 inches. You don't need all the way to 36 inches. It's just better to have a little bit more than what you actually need. And all we're gonna do is tie a little bow around the widest part of our flower pot. So we're gonna find center of our ribbon. You can use twine, you can use yarn, whatever it is that you wish to use. And I'm gonna put a little bit of hot glue on the back side of our pot, and I'm gonna put my fabric right in the middle. I'm gonna just hold it and let it cool. Be careful, don't burn yourself. And I'm gonna put a little bit more glue right here. And put that right in the middle. I'm gonna do that on the other side here. I'm just going to work our way all the way around to the front, and then we're just going to tie a little bow and put a little bit more hot glue right here in the front. And the hot glue is optional, guys. It just kind of helps hold everything together here. And then I'm just going to tie a simple bow. Make a loop. Make a loop, go over the top. Come up through. Just kind of fiddle with it until you like the size that you've got. I'll show you that again. I just hot glued it till I have about an inch opening. Then I'm going to crisscross. Go crisscross and go around. Pull snug just like you would tying a shoe. And you're going to make a little bit of a loop. Just make a loop. Then you're going to take this string over here. You're going to go around the back side, and then you're going to, right where your finger is, you're going to come up, you're going to bring this and come up through, right on up through, just like that. See how that works out, guys? And then you can pull on your tails to change your loop size. So I'm going to pull my loop size down. And then one side of your loop, let me show you. One side of your loop will make it the loop larger, and one will pull, and one side will make the knot tight. So you just got to find which one is which, and then just pull your knot tight. And then I'm going to pull my tail down a little bit to adjust my loop size. And I like that look right there. Maybe make this one just a little bit smaller. Just like that. And then you cut your tails off. And then you have a little fabric bow. Oh my goodness, you guys, it's coming together. It's so cute. Got a little straggler string. I'm going to cut that off too. So now that we have our fabric bow, and again, you guys can use, ribbon, you can use twine, string, yarn would be really cute. So you don't have to use the fabric strip, but any tie will work. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our painted up, hopefully dry bed spring, and we're going to take our painted up piece of cone, and we're going to put this all together. So we're going to take our cone and we're going to set it inside spring. So we're going to set, and you want to make sure that the base of your spring will sit down inside your pot. If it's too wide, you're going to have to cinch it down until this can sit down inside, because it's really important for this to sit down inside the pot. And then you're going to take your fabric cone. I need to make a little bit more of a space. Take your fabric, or take your cone, and just set it inside your spring. And now you're going to push everything down into your flower pot. So see how, I'll do that one more time. You have your spring and your bottom of your cone, and you're just going to slip that styrofoam or your ball or whatever it is that you're sticking down in here. You're going to set it inside your spring just like so. And you want to make sure that the bottom of your spring fits down, not all the way down, but it sits down in your pot. If it sits on the top, you want to make sure that this is smaller, so it sits down about halfway down your pot. And then you're just going to shove everything, and you want to make sure that where your stick is, you want your stick to be on the front side of your spring. So this would be your back side. You want the flat side of your spring to be on the front side where the bow is. But you can adjust it if you need to. And then you're just going to push everything very carefully. You want to have everything lined up. So you want to have your spring straight up and down as possible. You want your straight part to go up, and just kind of eyeball everything. And again, it's wire, so you'll be able to bend it a little bit. And then you're just going to start pushing your foam down into your pot. And you're just very carefully just going to push, push, push. And push it down in there. Be very careful. And you're just pushing it all the way down until you get your foam down into your pot, just like that. So now your spring is attached to your pot, and it's looking so cute. Oh my goodness. And now we're going to take a little bit of our Spanish moss. If you like that look, you're more than welcome to use anything to cover that. But I'm just going to take about a small handful of our Spanish moss, something like this. And I'm just going to put a little bit of hot glue right on top of our foam and add our Spanish moss. Just a little bit of hot glue. I'm going to spread out my Spanish moss and put it right on top of our foam cone. Guys, it's looking so cute. So cute. And then you'll have something that looks a lot like that, you guys. Oh my goodness, you guys, super cute. Okay, it's coming together. Now, all we need to do now is add our fabric petals to our lid. And this is a very, very simple process. You can tie it. You're more than welcome to tie it, but I prefer the loop method. And all that is you're going to take your 8-inch strip and you're going to make a loop. You're just going to fold end to end. So right sides facing up or out, and wrong sides, meaning the uglier side. And maybe your fabric is dual-sided and that's perfect. But if you have a wrong side and a right side to your fabric, you want your painted side and or the pretty side facing out. You're gonna match ends. So you have a loop. See that loop? And you're gonna take your lid and you're gonna take your loop and go through the lid, and you're gonna take your finger and your thumb and your finger, and you're gonna grab the petal ends and pull up through. And just pull tight. I'll show you again. And see how I got the wrong side showing? You want the right side showing. So I'll show you again. Make sure we get the right side showing. So you want the right sides out. You're gonna take that loop part and go through your lid. Get your fingers or your thumb and finger, and you're gonna pull the petal tips right through that loop. And while you're doing that, you wanna make sure that your fabric doesn't fold over on you, and you wanna make sure that you have the painted right side facing out, and you're just gonna pull tight. And that's all you guys got to do for 20 times. And then you have your little petals. Oh my gosh, you guys, that is so stinking cute. I love it every single time. So you're going to add all 20 of your petals just like that. So I'll show you again. End to end, right sides facing out. And you're going to take that loop and you're going to go through your lid. Take 2 fingers or your finger and your thumb, and you're going to grab those petal ends and you're going to pull through. But again, you want to make sure that that painted edge stays outside and doesn't fold over on yourself. And you're just going to pull tight. Just kind of, I'm pulling it this way and wiggling it. So you want to really cinch down those fabric pieces. And then you can go back and fix them just how you like. So you're going to add all of your fabric pieces all the way around, and I'll meet you back here. Once you guys start adding your petals and it starts growing a little bit, what you'll want to do is where you have your hole marked with your twine, just scoot your fabric petals right up to your twine, so you're not blocking your hole. So you're just gonna see how I have mine marked right there. I'm just gonna scoop my petals straight up right next to my twine. So I'm just gonna scoot them right on around. And then I'm just gonna start building all the way around. And once you get all of your petals added to your lid, then you can go back in and kind of move around the placement of your petals. And you can really cinch them down by pulling on all the fabric ends. And then just kind of even up the spacing on all your petals. All right, one of the last steps, we're getting there, guys. Scoot this down just a little bit. Could probably use maybe one more petal, but I think it's pretty cute. I'm just kind of pulling them forward. So once you have all of your petal pieces placed just like you like, super cute, guys. Oh my goodness, so cute. We're gonna add our center. So we're gonna take our little bit of polyfill. So we're gonna have our piece of fabric, our circle, and put that face down. We're gonna put our polyfill, and I just have just a little, like a cotton ball size, but you guys can do more or less depending on how full you want your piece to be. And because my lid has a hole in it from a previous project, I'm gonna glue a little wood circle to my lid so I don't lose my polyfill. But you won't have to do that. Yours will be hopefully just, you won't have a hole in yours. And then you're just going to take and put your lid right over your polyfill, and you're going to tack your fabric to the back side of your lid. And you don't have to spend a lot of time on it. You're just putting the fabric on the back side, just wrapping it like a little sandwich. Doesn't have to be perfect. You're just wrapping the polyfill in that fabric. Just making a little button. Easy peasy, guys. Then you're going to take your center and you're going to put it right in the center of this back side. And it's going to take a little bit of finagling. So just take your time with it, and you're just going to push, because this is your front. See where all your knots are? That's your front side. So you're going to flip it over, and you're going to have kind of like this little ridged area, and you're just going to flip your little button, fabric button over, and you're just going to start pushing down into your fabric. And if you need to, you can take your little hammer and just go around the inside of your button and just tap it right on the edge just to push it down into the front. And look how cute, you guys. All right, last step, guys. Last step. We're going to take our leaf and we're going to tie that to our frame here. And I'll show you how to tie our leaf. So what we're going to do is, you have your leaf shape. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold it over so right side's facing out, just like that. And then we're going to find center, and that's where you're going to tie onto your spring. And you guys can decide where it is you want to tie onto your spring. And I'm gonna tie mine right here. So you're just literally just gonna fold it over and slip it up through and just tie. Just a simple little knot. You don't have to pull too tight. Just like that. And then you can open it up a little bit. Just fold it open. And then I'm going to glue this edge of this leaf to this edge on this leaf, just to kind of get a little bit of dimension, so it'll sit like that. So I'm just going to tack a little bit of glue right on the end and put it right there, so it kind of sits together and it kind of helps hold each other up. You guys, so cute. And then what you'll do is where your string was, where your hole is, you're gonna just take the string out and open up those petals just a little bit. And then you're just gonna slip the wire right through that hole. And I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add just a little zigzag in my wire to keep so I'm just gonna add a kink. So I'm gonna just fold it over once and then fold it up. See that, guys? So I'm gonna add just a little bit of a zigzag so my flower doesn't fall all the way down. And then you're just gonna add your wire right through that hole. And I think my flower's a little bit shorter than what I'd like. So I think I'm going to take this back off, and I'm gonna stretch out my wire just a little bit. It's a little on the short side, so I'm gonna stretch it out just a little bit. So I'm gonna hold at the base, and I'm just gonna pull straight up. Just to make it a little bit taller. And I'm gonna make this a little bit better zigzag. There we go. So now my flower's a little bit taller. And then I'm gonna add my wire right through that hole again. Got it as tall as you want and the shape that you want, then you can go ahead and then round over that wire. You can either just fold it back or just make a loop, just so it's not poking straight up. I'm just going to loop it down. Just so it kind of hides into the fabric. And you guys, oh my goodness, so cute. I love how these turn out. Oh my gosh, you guys, look how stinking cute these turn out. I just love how these turn out. They're so easy to make and so much fun to do, you guys, and super affordable, I might add. I knew you could do it. I told you could do it. I want to see how your fabric sunflower turned out. I bet it turned out fabulous. Did you do yellow or did you choose a different color? Hey, you might want to send this video to somebody you know that might want to make their own fabric sunflower, because they're going to want to make one after they see yours. Send me a photo in the comments below. I want to see how yours turned out, you guys. Thanks so much for coming along today on this awesome and super charming crafting adventure. I enjoyed every single moment. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.